Is everybody at timestamp the beginning?
Yeah,
I'm ready.
timestamp 0.
All right.
I'm good.
In 3, 2, 1, play.
It's pronounced Frankenstein.
We're not watching that movie.
Noah, do you think it's an odd choice that we use Edward Van Sloan here, who plays Dr. Waldman in the movie?
Remind me again who that is.
You'll see him when he pops up, but like he looks different, you know, like they're not pretending he's playing that character. He's just
okay. He's just because here he's just a guy.
Prologue. Yeah, he's just a guy.
He's prologue man. Yeah, I guess that's a little distracting, but I also forgot that was the same actor, so I don't know. I don't know what that says.
Although I don't like the prologue, but part of what I like about the one thing I like about the prologue to Bride of Frankenstein is that that opens with a flashback of Mary Shelley as a character, and she's played by the actress who plays the bride at the end, and that's a fun choice.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
the same actress plays both Mary Shelley, the creator, and the bride at the end. That's a cool choice.
And of course, in this movie, the monster is portrayed by Question Mark.
Yep,
of course. That's your favorite actor.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
You know it. I'm the big fan of Question Mark's voiceover work.
I love these opening credits. I love the music. I love the imagery. Questionable. I don't get like the Fu Manchu looking face. That's not related to anything in this movie. That's what it is.
I don't think you can say that.
Kind of that old pulp.
What's the relevance of that here?
Like, I like the eyes. Like, that's the eyes spinning around. That's a cool choice. The players.
That feels, that's a very surreal, creepy choice. And
but back to that prologue though that Noah was talking about, that was famously parodied on Treehouse of Horror. I don't know when that was added. It might have been just after like the first screening of this movie. But there were complaints about this movie being too shocking and violent and disturbing people, and that's why they added that opening to say, "Hey, this is a scary picture," because film ratings didn't exist yet. This is a pre-code movie.
Okay.
So that was the compromise. Was okay. We'll put a little scene at the top to tell people, "Hey, if you're too chicken
shit, this is just it's an actual disclaimer."
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I don't. That's such a cool framing device, though, that I never really thought of it like that.
I love the way this film looks.
I love the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's probably the main thing I'm gonna gush about throughout this commentary. Is I love how this movie looks. I mean, just look at this.
And obviously,
it's so cool.
The movie Van Helsing, which we haven't covered yet, but is looking a lot at these movies.
Especially this one. And it's that's a funny thing about movies of this era. It's it's so obvious when you're on a set or when there's like a backdrop that's fake, and then with when enough time passes, that works back around to like adding to the charm of it. It's because there's the era that people go through of, oh my god, this is so dated, this looks fake. And then if the movie's good enough, it'll work back around to, oh no, like that's cool. It adds to the texture of it.
Yeah.
It's part of the experience.
I also think it depends.
What I like about,
because I think like a casual viewer would probably think that this still looks cheap or looks bad. But for some people like us that are horror fans or cinema fans, it's like, oh no, it's cool what they were able to accomplish.
Like, this looks, you can see how it's man-made, which is the thing I appreciate. Like,
and
someone made this.
Like, there's nothing logical about this cemetery at all. It just looks cool.
Very German expressionist.
And just because I watched the original last night, this movie and Bride has a lot of influence on Don Mancini and Child's Play.
Yeah.
To the point that the fourth movie is just Bride of Chucky.
Right, of Chucky. There you go.
And slight spoilers for the show, but I think it's in the first season finale. Chucky is watching Frankenstein, and he thinks the scene where Frankenstein throws the girl in the water is really funny, and it's amazing.
That scene has been parodied a lot.
Yeah. I will say, I like, real quick, I like this movie a lot. I think I've settled this isn't my favorite Frankenstein film. I'm not sure which one is, because, like, I think all the big three adaptations that I've seen are also really good in different ways.
For me, it would probably be Bride of Frankenstein. And then, I liked Mary Shelley's Frankenstein a lot more than I was expecting. So,
Well, no, you know what the best Frankenstein movie is?
no.
Pieces.
Oh, right, because it's exactly what I think it is.
Yeah.
Of course, Reanimator
Mhm.
definitely inspired by this. Like her, and I know that's based on the Lovecraft story, but Herbert West is very clearly inspired by Dr.
Well,
Frankenstein.
I was gonna ask because I don't know a lot about my writing history. Who comes first, Mary Shelley or H.P. Lovecraft?
Mary Shelley.
Definitely Mary Shelley.
Okay.
Shout out to these two actors. We got Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein and Dwight Fry as Fritz. They're like kind of unfairly forgotten in like the faces of Universal horror, because obviously the ones people think the iconic ones are your Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, to a lesser extent Claude Rains.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But like those are the big ones that people, and of course Lon Chaney and Lon Chaney Jr. But with these guys, I think part of it is they both died kind of young, so they're not in a lot of like the later movies. And Dwight Fry here was also as Fritz the Hunchback was also Renfield in the Dracula movie, which might be his best role,
Oh,
at
okay.
least in this run. Yeah,
He completely transforms in this.
he
Wouldn't have
does.
thought that that's the same actor.
It is kind of funny. I went from having not seen any of these to since I've started the channel. This is like the fourth time I've seen Frankenstein.
Oh, and Noah, this is the guy I was talking about, Edward Van
Yeah.
Sloan, who was also Van Helsing in the Dracula movie. So we got a couple of, these movies came out the same year, Dracula and Frankenstein, and we already have a few cast members carrying over.
If I can get on a soapbox for just a moment, I've been seeing a lot of people complain more and more about a lack of original ideas in Hollywood. We've always lacked original ideas. It's the problem is that the ideas that we're doing aren't good. This is an adaptation. It literally goes back to like the start of cinema. That's
Yeah, but most of the iconic films of this era are based on books or.
and you can say that about almost any decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you, most people who say that aren't watching the original films that come out every year.
Yeah, that's a big problem. Where people say, "Why don't they make original movies anymore? Do you go see them?" No, like I because I'm someone who goes to the movie theater quite often.
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Basically, at least once a month. But I have a rule every year. It's like, okay, I want to see at least a couple of movies that aren't based on it.
I want to see at least a couple of movies a year.
Oh fuck!
Here he grabs the brain of Abby Normal.
Part of what I love about Young Frankenstein is if you actually watch all of these movies, Young Frankenstein is kind of like a perfect wraparound to it. Even though that's not a Universal movie, it might as well. Like, especially if you watch stuff like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein when we do veer off into comedy. Young Frankenstein does feel like the natural conclusion to this saga.
Well,
like,
Young Frankenstein
really
that was probably my first Frankenstein movie.
It was
Oh,
an early one for me too.
So that movie holds a special place in my heart.
I need to see that again.
Okay.
I
Now,
love it.
for as loose of an adaptation of that book that this movie is, and for all the changes, the one that I find the most annoying because it's the most unnecessary, and it's the one thing that Young Frankenstein fucks up, or that they just couldn't, just due to rights issues. It's for some reason, I don't know if you remember this, John. Victor Frankenstein is renamed Henry Frankenstein in this movie, and his
Oh,
friend Henry from the book is renamed Victor in this movie. So they
why?
swapped the names
They
for no
switched
reason.
them. Yeah.
They switched the
I don't
samples,
think that ever dawned on me. Like, if you had
right?
put, yeah, that's dumb. Victor Frankenstein is the perfect like horror name.
Why they call him Henry?
And
But
it's interesting that we're real quick. It's interesting that we're double featuring these two because I think Victor or Henry is much more sympathetic in this movie, and then in the next movie that we're going to
Yeah.
do, spoilers, he is a monster.
who is the real monster? That is the question.
The real
And
monsters.
and that I think these movies are a prime example of reasons to readapt or remake things. I love these movies, but when you make them later in time, you're able to delve a little more deeper into the psychology and themes of the piece. Whereas this is trying, but it's also held back, I think, by its time and the different things that you were allowed or not allowed to say on screen.
Well, and not to date this commentary, but we are recording this in the year where a new Frankenstein adaptation is coming out, Del
Yeah,
Toro's movie.
That's true.
And it'll be interesting to see because that looks like it's going to be a bit more faithful to the book. So we'll see how that stacks up
again.
against Branagh's movie. Yeah,
Do you think they'll keep that brother and sister no more dialogue?
I hope not.
And I think that, to your point, John, only helps this film where if for some reason we just never touch this material again and this was like the only real Frankenstein movie, I think you'd see more criticism and pushback of it. Like, well, yeah, but it's not really the book. It's so different. It's part of what helps this movie and its legacy is the variety in adaptations. Like,
Yeah,
if you want something closer to the book, you do have that now to compare and contrast
because
and everything in between.
I'm very critical of adaptations, but I can also separate. I'm gonna use. Sorry, no, I'm gonna bring this up again. I'm gonna use The Shining as an example. Wonderful
God damn
movie.
it.
Wonderful movie. I like it a lot. But it is fundamentally a bad adaptation. These are two different things. It can be two different things, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you and I just have different definitions of good adaptation, but that's okay. We've talked about it before.
You haven't read the book, you bastard.
Hey, I've read the first few chapters. I liked what I read.
Finish the book.
I should. I might this month. We'll see.
Also, this doesn't have anything to do with anything, but I just noticed it's funny. For once, Noah has like a bigger beard than I do.
I do, yeah.
Oh my god.
I got a great big bushy beard.
Aye, laddie.
But I also think another thing that helps this film and its legacy is just the fact that it did have a really good sequel.
Mhm.
You know, at that, especially at that time, one of the best sequels ever made. And if you are a book purist or want more of the book, I mean, the second one, to its credit, does take more stuff from the book. You got the scene with him and the blind man. You got the monster wanting the mate and all those ideas.
Yep.
Like, so
Whoa,
if you look
whoa,
at these two
whoa.
movies,
The monster wanting to what?
wanting a mate, that's
You
the
want
story.
a mate?
No.
But if you look at these two movies together, you've got like at least a decent adaptation of the book. There's more of it
Yeah.
in there. Like when you look at the two of them together, even though there again many changes.
Well, and
And
it helps that this
they're
movie's so
both
short because this is
right.
not even
Yeah.
90.
This is an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think Bride is around the same length. So together, you got yourself a complete package.
I'd be interested to see if there's like a fan edit that mixes the two.
I'm sure there is out there. It's something I'd love to do, you know, just to stitch them together as one.
Yeah.
epic movie.
I mean, they work really well watching back to back. I remember from when we
That's what.
did our double feature commentary.
That's why it pisses me off that Bride isn't on that 4K set. It's on the neck. It's on Volume 2.
I know.
Should put them
Yeah.
together.
That should have been the exception, because that was just like the first for each monster. The first
Yeah.
volume was. I feel like the only sequel of the Universal monsters that's at all talked about in, like, held up in as high regard as like the first installments is The Bride of Frankenstein.
Which is
Easily.
interesting because I maintain that the slashers of the 80s are the next Universal monsters and how they're presented. Or at least with a couple of those, like people commonly are like, no, the sequels were better. Whereas with these ones, with this the Universal movies, usually it is the first one, and then the others, like there's good stuff here
Yeah.
and there, but
Because I'm pretty sure that's the only sequel I've seen of the Universal monsters.
I saw one
think
of the
I just-
Dracula ones. It was alright.
Yeah, I'd like to go through all of them some year.
Dracula's just one of those weird things where, like, I like the movies that I've seen more or less, but none of them have like blown me away.
Yeah, I like the first one fine enough. It's not like
Ironically, I think my
Yeah.
favorite Dracula movie is not the Robert Eggers Nosferatu.
mine too. That's mine.
Right.
Yep.
Well, it's funny. Both of these stories have been adapted as many times, but I feel like for whatever reason, the Dracula ones seem to be remembered more because there's a shit ton of Frankenstein adaptations I still haven't seen that are still
Yeah.
forgotten. But there might be a couple good ones out there.
I think vampires just have a more pop cultural appeal than this.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I think Dracula struggles for me is a lot of the adaptations, are style over substance. That's why I can't really get into like the Coppola movie.
I love the Coppola
Whereas the
movie.
Frankenstein movies tend to be more substance. And I don't want to say they don't have style. This one is very stylized. But to take Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, for example, that is a movie that is subtle in its style. In its look. Like, Frankenstein is just a guy with like lines on it.
He is just a guy with a scar, yeah.
Its style is the more
Yeah.
it's in the dialogue and how theatrical it is, which may not
Yeah.
appeal to people.
I was just gonna say, I just thought your word choice is funny because subtle is not.
Yeah,
how
as soon as I
describe
said
that
it, I was
movie
like,
at
I don't
all.
know if that's the right
Yeah.
word.
But I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
It's a very loud, anxious movie. But in terms of production design and costume design, I think it's more period accurate than what Coppola's Dracula was
Yeah.
going for. So I see.
You get a little bit of it when you see Frankenstein's lab in that movie.
Yeah.
And
This is
I want to tie that,
when he pulls the sock up, it's so unnecessary, but it's great.
and I want to tie that back to another point I wanted to make about this movie. It's part of what makes this movie live on is this is the iconic imagery. You know,
Yeah.
this is the Frankenstein everyone does when they're doing like a parody or a reference.
It's also funny how faulty people's memories are, or like what sticks and morphs through cultural
Yes.
osmosis over the decades. Like, for example, for some, we always just kind of conflate like Dracula's castle with there's also a Frankenstein castle, but then you watch this movie and it's like, oh no, it's like an abandoned clock tower. I always forget that every time I
Well,
rewatch this
the
movie.
big one is, and this is kind of turned around to the point where now it's the, like, who doesn't know that is Frankenstein is the scientist, not the monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so smart.
Did you know that Frankenstein is not the monster?
It's that's why in my theory for the slasher monsters being the universal monster, the next incarnation, Jason is Frankenstein because he has the exact same thing. Did you know that Jason's mom was the killer in the first movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like we know.
It irritates the crap out of me in Scream 4 when she gets that wrong. Kirby would know that.
Oh yeah, that makes no sense.
The other, but the thing that the other thing that people
The Thing?
misremember about this movie, not the John Carpenter one, that's
The
less
original?
talked about is the fact that he has a hunchback assistant here. I mean, that's not in the book. That's an invention for the movie. But B, his name is Fritz, not Igor.
Not Igor.
Igor is the Bela Lugosi character who's introduced in the third one. But then after multiple movies of that, and then I think what really made it stick is you got stuff like the Mel Brooks parody in Young Frankenstein, where you have
Yes.
Igor, where we combine those characters into one. That's when
And I
that
feel
just
like
sticks in
that's
people's heads
the
that-
version that I see when people like post pictures or whatnot. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because then I have seen the third Frankenstein, because I've seen Igor and he's amazing.
Great.
I love him.
They hung me once.
No,
My
if you
neck
haven't
broke
seen that,
that
you gotta
time.
watch it. It's peak.
I should. I really need to watch through, especially the Frankenstein ones, just because Frankenstein is my favorite Universal monster.
Tyler
love
wants to
him.
know, what do we think of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Like, which one?
I need to see those.
I haven't
I
seen.
haven't
Although-
seen those.
The only one I've seen is the one in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which,
Oh.
you
Poor,
know,
poor soul.
He's
I
fine.
think that's the only one I've seen too. Now that I think about
fuck
I-
you, Noah.
it. I forgot I
remember-
watched League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Right?
I watched that movie
Yeah, I
a
don't-
lot as a kid.
I don't remember who made it, but there was a Jekyll and Hyde movie from this era, but it's not Universal.
Mm.
Like Universal actually never did Jekyll and
Yeah.
Hyde for whatever reason.
Einstein
Which is
Kills
funny
has
that
a
he's
kick-ass
in The
Jekyll and Hyde
Mummy.
song.
You mean Van Helsing?
Wait, sorry, to who?
No, I think he's saying that he's in The Mummy 2017.
Yeah, the 2017.
Oh, okay.
Russell Crowe is. It's
I was
funny
thinking
because you kind of think of Jekyll and Hyde being part of that lineup
Mhm.
of monsters, but the classic Universal
Technically not.
monsters never
That's also
never did it.
not a property we do a lot with.
Yeah. And that's what I've had this conversation with you guys recently where people are like, oh, well, you can't adapt it now because people already know the twist. It's like, just make it. Like, we haven't done one in a while. Like, just make a good movie. Who cares?
Yeah.
Just stick closer to the book. Make it different.
Tyler says he means as a concept. I think they completely misinterpreted the original material in films, and that's in.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Oh,
I mean, it's a fine concept. Like,
Yeah. Well, what he's talking about specifically is the idea is in the book, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The twist, so to speak, is that there is no Hyde. Jekyll was just taking the potion to change his appearance so he could do whatever he wants as Hyde. It's not a split personality thing like we
oh.
usually do in adaptations, so I think
Right.
that's what Tyler's talking about. That's
Oh.
kind of misremembered.
See, I didn't know that.
So just do a movie
Just
that's
do that.
closer to the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
And it's very classic. You know, man is the real monster.
And also, to be fair, I've heard that the movie, I forget if it's in the 30s and 40s, does play it kind of ambiguous. It's just his performance is so different that, like, in later versions, they just really lean.
Well,
into
and then you
his
get to, like,
personality.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where it's like the Hulk.
Yep.
Einstein Kills has a wonderful song inspired by the novel.
That's awesome. And then here we have what is maybe the single most iconic scene. in
They built the
cinema.
entire
Five.
Van Helsing
In
movie
cinema?
around this scene.
Yep.
No, I gotta
Definitely
make you
one of
watch
those.
that movie at some point.
oh, yeah, I still gotta see Van Helsing.
It's
It
a
is-
fun, stupid movie.
It is an action movie built entirely around this scene.
Oh, wonderful.
But what's fun about it is it is a big universal crossover. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the titular
Yeah,
Van Helsing.
I've always heard like critics poo-poo that movie, but I know it's got a cult following.
One of them.
I was not expecting you to say they poo-poo on it.
Yeah, they poo-poo.
No, I love that movie. I saw that in theaters. I was like, that might be the greatest thing I've ever seen.
I loved it when I was a kid. It tries really hard to recapture the magic and the fun of the Stephen Sommers Mummy movie, and it's not as good as that.
It's not. It
It's
has some
not.
really
Mummy's
unfortunate
great.
CGI.
It
Well,
does.
even
I
The
still
Mummy
really like this
Returns
one.
isn't as good as the first Mummy.
Yeah,
No.
That's also Stephen Sommers.
it's a lie.
The 99 Mummy is the best Mummy movie.
I'd have to agree with you on that.
I love it. And this, I mean, again, one of the most
It's
famous
alive.
movies ever, and it's
And
funny.
Yeah. Are
But
you gonna talk
every
about the controversial other line? Or
yeah, we'll get to that. But it's like in every other adaptation from different studios, we're always trying to avoid the Universal one as much as we can to not get sued, and sometimes
yeah.
that involves taking closer to the book. But that line, "It's alive," which I don't think is in the book, that will still they still do that.
Yeah.
Reason
Even the
number two
Branagh
that
movie can't get away from it.
reason number two that Jason is just the slasher Frankenstein, lightning.
Yep. What I mean, the opening of Jason Lives is just looking at this movie.
Yeah.
So Noah, what did you want to say about the other line?
Well, yeah, because everyone quotes "It's alive," but not a lot of people know about what he says right after, which is "Now I know what it feels like to be God," which of course was very controversial at the time, and that line was cut from certain screenings and I think TV broadcasts too, in different parts of the country. So
It wasn't reinstalled. It wasn't put back in the movie for a long time.
Real quick, Tyler says that if one of you can fact check this, because I'd be interested to see it. We did get a Jekyll and Hyde movie in the 1990s. It's called Riley.
Yep,
I'm pretty
I've
sure.
heard of this.
Tyler, who is Freddy
Okay.
and who is Michael? Then Freddy's the Invisible Man.
I was
He's
gonna
in-
say, is Freddy Dracula? Like, I don't
I
know.
think there's a little Dracula in there, a
A
little.
little bit, but Freddy's the Invisible Man, right? Because you can't see
Yeah.
him when you're awake.
Good point.
Chucky is obviously the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Michael would be Dracula, right? Like a creature of the night that stalks you. He just doesn't drink blood.
Yeah.
But obviously, none of these are 1-to-1. It's just this is the
Right.
closest.
I was gonna say Jason's maybe the closest one-to-one with Frankenstein.
Yeah, Jason. The story of Jason. I'm sure it's on complete accident because as much as I love those movies, they weren't trying to do this. Completely on accident. Tyler, who would Leatherface be? Leatherface is kind of a
Also
different breed.
Frankenstein.
Leatherface is kind of a different breed because he's not like the other slashers.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has one.
Well, he's a little closer to the Mummy, at least in the Mummy sequels, where he's just kind of a henchman to another bad guy.
Yeah.
And with Leatherface, you have the family, but that's all I got.
I don't know.
But
I don't know. I love the Texas Chainsaw. When I say the slashers, I don't usually count him because he's got the one movie that's a proto slasher and then two which is insane. But he's kind of always been on his own path, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and to John's point, it's like when you get to the 80s, part of what he means is you had the villains becoming like the icons and the ones selling the merchandise.
Yeah.
That kids thought were cool. In the way the monsters, the Universal monsters became over the decades, where Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street started as like these adult fucked up movies, and then a few sequels later, like we're selling masks and toys to kids and video games and shit.
Yeah,
because they're cool.
Leatherface never reached that same height, I don't think. Especially because they didn't pump out those sequels. Because I think by the 90s he's only got the 3 movies.
Mm-hmm. And same with Michael Myers, who, you know, is up there, but for the bulk of the 80s, when Freddy and Jason were at their most popular, like, we weren't making Michael Myers movies, you know, in the mid-80s.
Yeah.
So he gets left behind.
But he caught up pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow. I saw those movies. I don't know why people liked them.
Most of them aren't good. But back to Tyler's comment about that Jekyll and Hyde '90s movie. I think John Malkovich plays Dr. Jekyll, which is good casting, but that was in that wave of like more prestige, bigger budget adaptations where you had Coppola's Dracula and Brana's Frankenstein, and then the Mary Riley, whatever it's called, Crashed and Burned, where that one, and it's based on a book, but the idea is it's the story of Jekyll and Hyde, but from the maid's perspective. And I've heard it sucks. Like
Okay.
Why?
the movie
Oh.
failed, it made no money. Maybe the book's decent. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I haven't read it. That's just what I know about it.
We also
But
got.
I killed
That's
that
a shame.
trend.
Didn't John Carpenter make an Invisible Man, or he was going to?
He did a
But-
movie with Chevy Chase.
Oh
about the
yeah,
Invisible
Memoirs
Man.
of an Invisible Man.
That's okay. There is a whole slew of Invisible Man movies that aren't like based on the book. Really, like
Yeah.
Hollow Man would be another one.
I was
That's
gonna
a
bring
whole
up Hollow Man
genre.
because I was gonna bring up Hollow Man because that's Verhoeven.
I still need to see it.
Same, and I think Kevin Bacon is in that.
Kevin Bacon.
I'm Kevin Bacon.
This scene is awesome. I love Karloff in this role. I love the makeup.
He's so good.
The look is so good. He moonwalks into your.
Last thing I want to say on this, for the slashers to be universal, it isn't 1-to-1 because I think multiple fit multiple slots. Like Jason is Frankenstein, but I could also make that same case for Chucky in some ways. He's got the stitched together look, and he gets a bride, and it's all very influenced by some of this.
Jason never got a bride.
No, he doesn't care.
Yes.
He just wants to kill people.
Especially when you're looking at the franchise where you do all like the body swapping stuff.
Mhm.
And then you kind of get that with Frankenstein with the brain swapping in some of the later sequels.
Yeah.
We talked over it, but I love the zoom in shot to his face.
Yes.
It's kind of a proto jump scare. Like it's not literally a jump scare because there's no like sound effect accompanying it, but like those hard cuts to his face were like
That's what makes
meant
it
to be
creepy, though.
shocking. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for a
fact that there's
1931
no
audience,
music.
it's like,
Yeah.
And to your point about adaptation as well, I feel like every horror show that that you watch, if it's a drama, does a Frankenstein episode.
yes.
But this is the iconic one. The bolts, the sewn.
flathead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think even Scooby Doo does this one.
they do.
There he is.
Like
There
that
he is.
figure's great.
It's Boris.
I'm just
Okay.
gonna talk like this for the rest of this. There we go.
Oh,
What's up, guys?
There you
he's
go.
doing the thing with his
Hey.
arms.
Hey, we got a special guest here. Frankenstein's monster is here with us to talk about his movie. What was it like filming this scene, Frankenstein's monster?
Roar.
Oh, okay, yeah. Very interesting. All right, go. All right, we have had enough time with you. You're not welcome here. Get out of here. Oh,
Okay, so Robert, I gotta ask, how many copies of this movie do you own?
One. That is actually the box to the action figure.
Oh, okay.
But I thought
Okay.
it looked cool. Yeah. So I got the full like Universal box set.
And then you just took the okay.
It's like the Friday set where like you get the individual cases, which is nice.
Would have been nice if they. I don't want to sound ungrateful because I'm glad I got that 7 film set. I really wanted that steelbook one because each one is the individual case and it's the original poster for each one.
So,
When
fuck,
we
he's
watch
afraid of
Nightmare
fire.
6, we got to do it in 3D.
this is where we establish his fear of fire.
And one thing the movie really pulls off is like you instantly empathize with this creature. Like they waste no
Yeah.
time in making sure you know that. Oh no, Fritz is the asshole. Like you're
So,
supposed to. hate
I
him.
just had this thought. Do you think Romero's totally looking at this when making Night, right?
A little, yeah. Like there is a broader genre of just reanimated corpses, whether it's this or the Mummy movies, that I think are all influencing Romero.
Well, I say that because the one thing that he doesn't really carry over as much in the second and third film is in that first movie they're scared of fire,
That is correct.
and then he kind of just boils it down in Dawn to shoot them in the head.
And this is a little similar to the book where Dr. Frankenstein is like, "Oh God, I fucked up. What have I done?" But
What
he
have
doesn't
I
really
done?
he doesn't abandon the creature in this. Like he doesn't.
It's kind of funny in the book because he like takes a look at the creature and then like immediately goes to bed, like tries to forget about it.
Tyler asks
Like,
if
as
that's
we all would.
Tyler asks if that's the only Universal Monsters NECA
The figure
that you have.
I have recently. I got the Dracula one, which is really cool, and I also have the Wolfman and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Those are the ones I currently have. Yeah, and that's like the big point of contention, I think, for fans of the book who aren't crazy about this movie, is making the creature not talk. So I get it. It's a different take, but again, it's cool that you get a little bit of that in the sequel.
I think that's why you need that in Bride together, because that's where you get that stuff.
Yeah, but even in Bride, he doesn't speak in full sentences like he does in the book. But you know, that's
he's not philosophizing as much.
Yeah.
That shot was so cool when we see Fritz's corpse hanging.
You know what we gotta watch? I Frankenstein.
Oh God. The Aaron Eckhart one.
Yeah.
I never saw it.
I didn't either. I own it on Vudu. I've never watched it.
I keep asking you, what happened to Aaron Eckhart?
He was an I Frankenstein.
Yeah.
No. I keep saying, can he come back? And he should come back.
No.
Oh.
He was an I Frankenstein. That's punishable by death.
That's not his fault.
I think there's a continuity error here where when we go back to this room, Fritz's corpse just disappears. Like it's just not in there anymore.
It spawned out.
Well, you see, that's because he ran into memory overload. The video game couldn't hold any more bodies on the floor.
Yeah. It's like when you beat the story in Arkham Asylum and you just go through the asylum and everyone's empty.
Well, famously in Resident Evil, because the PlayStation couldn't really render bodies like that, when you'd kill a zombie and you'd come back into the room, they were gone.
Yeah.
But I think that actually worked for the best, because it's like, are they really gone?
Are they gonna get back up?
And of course, the answer is no one's ever really gone.
Oh
my God, they're wrestling.
Wrestling.
No, we should do that Netflix Frankenstein when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that a lot. I'm just because I'm.
It could go either way.
I love Del Toro, so I'm excited for it, and I think Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein is just great casting.
So I didn't know this. Did you know there was a Frankenstein adaptation before this?
Yeah, in 1910. Yeah,
1915.
Or 15.
But it is a lost film.
Yeah, this is the iconic one, but I often forget that there was a few other adaptations before this.
This set, you can really see like the German expressionist influence.
Yeah, with all the just like leaning structures, the shadows.
Good Lord. There's a list on Wikipedia of how many, like, of all the Frankenstein just appearances, not movies.
There's a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Can't forget Frankenberry.
Oh, no. This This list includes the porn parodies.
Oh my god.
Well,
Well, we have to watch those now.
it's good. It's a comprehensive list. I'm sorry, what? I'm not watching those.
No, that's what Noah's looking forward to the most.
No, you two can do that. I'm not gonna watch the one where Frankenstein walks in and goes, Anthony.
Okay, I'm gonna cry foul on this a little bit. It is including Frankenstein-esque characters. So, like, for example, in Dragon Ball, there's a character named Android 8 that is influenced by the design of Frankenstein. So they've put it on this list. I cry foul a little bit at that.
It's so hard to like draw a line somewhere. Like when we were doing the Scooby-Doo commentaries, we were talking about like the creeper. You have a few monsters like that are like inspired by Frankenstein, but then there's another episode where they do like a bunch of monsters, and one guy is very literally supposed to be Frankenstein's monster, where he's like walking like with his arms outstretched like he does in the sequels. You know, so you have like a very direct parody in one, and then others that are more
Well, and then
inspired.
Down here, I haven't seen it, but it lists the new Lilo and Stitch. Does that just mean she was watching it on TV? Is that like, are we counting that? That shouldn't count.
We have to cover it for the channel now.
Oh.
Well, it is horrifying, from what I've heard.
It's Robert's favorite film of the year.
Ohana means family.
Except for that movie.
Just kidding. You're going to the home.
Nope.
It is funny though that this includes Frankenstein's father. That's the old guy here who's not in a lot of the adaptations, and I haven't read the book for myself, so I don't know if his father dies at some point in the book.
I think he does.
Because Ian Holm plays him in the '90s one, the Kenneth Branagh. I don't remember if he dies in that or not. I haven't seen it since we did our commentary.
It's been so long since I've read that. That was one of the few books I read in high school where I was like, I love this.
Oh, that's awesome.
I really need to read the book. I'd like to do more books on the channel. It's just that's a lot more of a commitment.
Mm-hmm. This scene scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. I found it very creepy. This is the most effective like kill sequence. He's waking up. It's like, yeah, maybe chop off his head first before
before you look inside. You guys realize though that we have to cover Frankenweenie on the channel.
Yes.
The Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, the suspense here is just great. Oh, don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Why do that?
Keep thinking he's gonna trip and fall down those stairs. Those big ass shoes.
He just looks kind of fed up.
Let me ask you guys this real quick. In your opinion, is this the first, like, the villain is, the monster is not the villain, he's kind of the victim?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, one
Definitely
of the first examples I can think of.
It's up there. Because even Dracula, which is technically the first of these, does not have that. Like,
no,
he is the villain.
He is the villain
of that movie.
He is the villain of the story, Robert.
Yeah, and then this will become a bit of a through line for a lot of the Universal monsters and part of their popularity. And I think their popularity with kids, because you do empathize with them. Like, kids can understand, oh, if we just left this alone, it would be fine. Like, it's not evil.
And yet,
It's the people that are the
somehow
problem.
people missed the point.
Yeah. But, the Wolfman has that. Creature from the Black Lagoon especially has that.
One day we'll make a good Wolfman film.
Oh. Yeah, there's a couple.
No, I just mean the Wolfman specifically.
Yeah.
I like the Universal one.
I wish I did. I'm so sad Hammer didn't make one. Hammer would have made a killer Wolfman.
I'm pretty sure they did, but I've never seen it.
I've never heard of it. I don't
I
think they
think
did that
they
or
made a
Invisible
werewolf
Man,
movie.
did they?
I don't know if they did Invisible. Well, okay, I'm pretty sure Hammer made a movie, and there are plenty of werewolf movies, but Universal owns the Wolf Man. Like that's not based on a book. They invented that character.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure Hammer made.
You're
a
right. They
werewolf
made the
movie.
Curse of the Werewolf.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I'd like to see it. Maybe it's good.
Yeah, that could be cool.
Yeah, because werewolves in general, I think, have had a more hit or miss kind of history in cinema.
Yeah.
But the Wolfman specifically, I like the original Wolfman fine enough, but it's not one of my favorites of these.
Mm-hmm.
No, it really peaked with the American Werewolf in London.
That's the best one.
Which I think we still have to do a video on. When did that
I guess
come
we
out?
haven't done that.
Or 81, I think. Early 80s.
Not 85.
Not 85. To the House of Frankenstein.
That's a different movie.
Does that mean this is a trailer for the next movie?
No, that's
This is
like
the post-credit
that's the
scene.
movie. Noah, earlier you were talking about that line, that infamous line, now I know what it feels like to be God, that was cut out of this for a long time with Backlash. That's the type of backlash that I feel is really funny, when it's like, oh, so the people complaining about that completely missed the context, where it's like, you're not supposed to agree, like, because the controversy at the time was,
crazy.
oh, that's no, it's like, it was specifically like, oh, that's blasphemous. You can't say that in a movie. You can't compare yourself to God. And it's like, the movie's not on his side when he says that.
Well, obviously,
for his own downfall.
Yeah, I mean, that still happens to this day. People just focus on what's being said, not how it's being presented, not how it's being the context.
Yeah, we like to talk a lot about lack of media literacy in like film criticism now. It was going on back then too.
Yeah. Nothing's changed. Just those people are louder now because we give them a platform.
Yep. And then one thing I wanted to talk about this movie, though, as much as I respect the original Dracula, and it is great, I think James Whale is a much better director than who they had on that movie. Like the cinematography, the camera work, the scope of this movie. I feel like this is, for me, this is a big leap forward, like a big step up in quality.
Yeah, especially Dracula. The audio.
Yes,
that's a big jump in quality from Dracula.
Mm.
Well,
yeah, and just speaking of audio,
a shame how these directors were treated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because James Whale was great, of course. I believe at this point he was openly gay, but then got more controversy for that later, and I think that's why Universal stops working with him, which is unfortunate. Because because he does this, he does Invisible Man, and I think Bride was his last Universal monster picture.
Dude just came in, made the 3 best Universal monster movies, and left.
Yep, he was great.
Based.
No, because I really don't know if I want to get too deep into this, but I think you can make a reading for the whole them fearing Frankenstein for what he looks like can be read as subtext for how people would treat Whale for being gay.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we also, particularly when adapting Frankenstein, we also look at it as a metaphor for racism a lot, all that kind of stuff. But I think there's definitely a lot more, whether intentional or not. I think there's even more like queer subtext to Bride of Frankenstein
Yes.
than there is in this one.
Now, admittedly, before y'all come at us in the comments, at least me, I am not qualified to talk for that. I have not had that experience. But I don't think it's controversial to say you can read that into these films.
I think it's a valid reading if someone wants to read into it that way.
Now,
This
if
scene
you're
is
Chucky,
horrifying.
this is the funniest scene in the movie.
And for pay attention to when the creature picks her up, because you're going to see a shift in picture quality there.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Steep drop off.
So that
Because
scene was removed.
it was removed for decades before the footage was rediscovered somewhere and they were able to restore it. So, John, for context, this was like the other big, shocking, controversial scene of this movie was, oh my god, we saw him kill a child. And after, not initially, like, that was always there, but when they re-released it several years later is, I think, when they took that scene out. And then that scene was just gone for decades.
I was going to say...
what's funny...
go ahead. Sorry.
But what's funny is, when you remove that scene, and you cut from just the monster meeting the little girl, and then next we see her, she's fucking dead, that makes it way more horrifying.
Yeah.
Where it's like, without that context that, oh, it was an accident that he just threw in there because he thought she was going to float, like, it's an accident. When you take that scene out, it recontextualizes the film and makes the monster more of a bad guy.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh god, what did he do to her? It's way more disturbing.
Robert, I'm going to boil down what she said to 2 words. Censorship bad.
Yep.
Is that a direct quote from Frankenstein's monster?
Yeah.
Censorship bad.
No, I wonder if they cleaned that up for this, because I was like looking at it and I don't know if I'm just blind. It looked the same to me.
Okay, interesting. And of course, I'm watching the Blu-ray, not the 4K, so maybe the 4K does look a lot better.
They probably... Yeah, and I'm also watching the Blu-ray. I do have to say, though, I mean, this looks amazing for a Blu-ray.
It looks so gorgeous, yeah. And again, comparing it to Dracula, there's just so much more variety in locations and sets. Like, we're not stuck in one house the whole time.
Where is this, like, supposed to be? Because they were dressed like, I don't know, it looked kind of like German.
It is. It's supposed to be set in Germany.
Oh, okay.
Which is funny because there's no attempt at like accents or anything else.
They're just British, or kind of not even that really.
Tyler James Will is a top 10 director of all time. I can't go that far.
I'd like to see more of his work. I've only
He's
seen
certainly the best of Universal directors.
I have to see more of his work, but like I don't know if I have a top 10. I could whip one up off the top of my head, but maybe top 15. I don't know.
And this scene is kind of in the book when the monster attacks Dr. Frankenstein's bride, except in the book he actually kills her.
Oh.
Here he just shows up, scares her, and fucks off.
Which is why Victor Frankenstein does not make the bride for the monster. Or maybe I have that backwards, now that I think about it.
I think you're right. Because in the book, they talk about making a monster bride, but he never actually goes.
Yes, yeah.
That's I think one of the best ideas in the 90s version is fusing those two things where Dr. Frankenstein his wife dies like she does in the book, and then he reanimates her and makes her the bride of Frankenstein. That's a great idea. We should revisit. in adaptations.
That was insane. That movie.
Well, when it's Helena Bonham Carter, you know that's probably where it's going.
Yeah.
Why else would you cast her in that part? I wish the stress wasn't so big. And as we all know, Frankenstein's monster is known for his stealth.
When are we gonna get the Frankenstein stealth game?
It's like a Batman Predator map.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Just Frankenstein on a gargoyle and he drops down.
And again, it's just
I
Karloff, his physical performance is just so good.
There's just something unintentionally funny about that. Ah, arr, ah, arr.
Ah.
I'm gonna say it. Sam Raimi's Frankenstein. Give it to me.
I love it.
Give it to Raimi.
Hell, give it to Flanagan too. We could have multiple.
And then, but another big idea that I don't think is in the book at all, that I think they're just borrowing from their from Universal's silent Phantom of the Opera movie, is the big angry mob. Like that's gonna be the climax of this, is the angry mob getting together to go after the creature. And then after this movie, that is a trope that we go back to constantly.
Evil dies tonight.
And John, back to the censorship thing. It's just so funny that they cut out the bit of him throwing her in the water, but then you keep this in
Yeah.
where he's holding her corpse, and I think it's way more.
That's
This
always
is
been the
worse.
thing. Is censorship has never made sense, and it's never consistent.
No.
Because the people who are demanding these things be cut don't actually know how the people watching it are going to react. They're just assuming that people will react this certain way.
Often it's, this thing isn't made for me, and I want it made for me. And then I'll complain about something else.
Of course.
I will say,
John
this
Carpenter
dagger
would
is
have also
kind
made
of
a
buzzkill.
kick-ass Frankenstein movie.
This is a lot more warranted of an angry mob forming than in the Branagh movie where it's, hey, this guy's got a scar on his face. Fuck him up.
He's a monster. Yeah. This guy's kind of a buzzkill, though, admittedly. Like, you know, they're all partying, having a
To
time. Like,
bring in a dead child.
yeah, who does that?
You should have brought
Come
her in and be
on.
like, I found dessert. Put her in
Oh my
put her in
God.
the oven.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, that's been said.
Ooh.
Well, hopefully
The opinions of John do not reflect the opinions of the rest of Haven of Horror.
And here's what I'll say about the creature. You know, he feels joy. He's afraid of fire. He's curious. You know, has all these qualities. Is that what he's remembered for? No.
So
But-
you're
but
saying
you
he's
kill-
as human as anyone?
But you kill one little girl, and suddenly that's the thing that defines you. It's messed up.
So what you're
Fine,
saying is that he's he loves, he gets scared, he's as human as anyone.
Yep.
I think that's the moment in the theater was like, yep, this is my new favorite Superman movie.
I really want to see Frankenstein's monster give that speech.
I want it. I need it. I need to see that.
Me get scared.
But Frankenstein, you drowned a little girl. That was an accident. Oh, okay. Oh God. Get
no,
your
with
torches, get your
with the
pitchforks.
Branagh version, doesn't he kill someone? That's why they form that mob. Because the monster in that is a lot less
Evil.
victim, more evil.
Not necessarily. It's closer to the book where he's
He's
a little more
angry.
morally gray. Yeah. the scene I'm thinking of, if I remember correctly, that was right after he was made. That's like before he finds the family.
Oh, okay.
So I think it was literally he was just like walking out in the street, and then people were
Have
like,
you ever tried not
"That
being
guy's ugly."
Frankenstein's monster?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh God. Hopefully this is the worst thing Germans ever do. When did this come out? 1931.
Well,
Oh.
it's
That's
problematic commentary.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Speaking of which,
Yeah,
have
no.
you guys seen the new episode of Peacemaker?
Topical. But to what John was saying earlier, though, like if this was made just a few years later, they probably wouldn't have set this in Germany.
Absolutely not.
And again, it'll only like vaguely, like they never get too specific. Also, it's funny when you watch like all these Universal movies, like the timeline is all fucked because sometimes they're period pieces, sometimes they're set when they're made, but then when they start crossing over, you realize like the timeline is not. It makes sense.
Well, Robert,
It's okay. The world
evil
just kind
never
of looks
dies.
like this.
That's true. Will evil die tonight?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that this is set in Germany because Nosferatu, which is just a few years before this, I forget what year that came out,
Maybe 10 years before, but yes,
is a German film.
Mhm.
And is hilariously just a ripoff of Dracula.
Shamelessly. Yeah, no, and you see a lot of German expressionist, influence on American cinema in this era, and we're just a few years away from the Nazis being the biggest evil in the world and us being at war. Like,
Well,
there's like a real
Yeah.
shift.
This is how bad I am with silent movies. I never understood the ripoff thing to the not completely, but like I didn't get how much it was until I watched the Eggers movie. That is just like a normal movie,
Like,
and I was
oh,
like,
yeah,
oh no, this is Dracula.
Dracula.
This is Dracula.
But also in the 1930s, you get the American adaptation of All Quiet on the Western Front, which is a great anti-war movie.
It's
one of the
so
best,
funny you
and
bring that up.
it's set in Germany. Like the Germans are
Well,
the
no.
protagonists.
Hold on, I gotta make sure I'm thinking of the right movie because that is connected. Put a pin on that. I'll come back to it as soon as I pull this up.
For sure. But no, I haven't seen the remake yet that came out a few years ago, but I've heard it's really good. That 1930s one is an excellent anti-war movie. It's set during World War I.
Yeah.
But it's a really effective story.
Yes.
That's pretty good. I
So
remember.
James Whale's career went into a decline following the release of his next film, which is The Road Back. Do you know what The Road Back
Yeah.
is a sequel to?
All Quiet on the Western Front. I have heard of this. And I've heard it was edited as shit and like butchered.
Yeah,
by
from
the
what I'm
studio.
reading here, a
But it
lot
was
of his career struggles in the 30s going into the 40s were just like studios cutting up his film. Which I want to tie into a new story I saw today, and I sent this to Noah. I don't know if you know about this. Have you seen Together?
I still haven't seen it.
Okay.
either.
I'm going to be as
Okay,
vague as
don't
I
s-
can
Yeah.
to not
be
spoil
vague.
anything. But there is a scene involving two gay men. So for the Chinese release, China went in and AI edited one of the men into a woman.
That's so stupid. Like,
Yeah.
how is that even allowed in 2025? That's obnoxious.
So it gets better. This was an unauthorized edit.
Okay.
Neon pulled the film from the entire country.
Well, good on them.
Yeah, but it's just funny. It's like, and
I
I've
can't believe they just
seen the
went and did that.
Photoshop. I showed it to him. It looks terrible. It's clearly just a
I
guy.
can imagine.
Yeah, that's awful. When I saw that, I was like, "What am I looking at?"
We talked.
I
over it, but
love this shot.
the windmill's iconic,
Yeah.
and we talked over it. But like that face to face of the monster and his creator before they duke it out, like it's so good. And but I do think there is an intentional tragic irony here
Yes.
that the angry mob is going after the monster and wants him to burn, and then we'll save Dr. Frankenstein, not understanding or not having the full context that no, he's the one you should be mad at. He's what started this whole thing.
Well, and I'll tie that back
Yeah.
to my point earlier of Romero looking at this. I think in a lot of ways this is a similar ending to the original Night, where they shoot the man, not the zombies.
That's true. Yeah, and it's funny too because in the I don't know if it was the original cut or if this was changed like during production before it premiered, but originally Dr. Frankenstein was supposed to die here too, like he does in the book. But I think here I think he's supposed to like die just from wounds after this battle. And then it was kind of a studio mandated. No, let's give it a happier ending. Let's show that he lives, which for this film, I don't love that. The epilogue's least favorite scenes in this movie. I don't really need it, but
It is still
The two
better
things
than the
that-
Psycho epilogue.
that's fair. And it does two things. It leads into Bride of Frankenstein, which is great. So I'm glad the character got to survive for that film. And two, I think it kind of hammers home my earlier point a little stronger that like the monster dies, but the creator lives, and like that's not. There's a tragic irony to that.
Yeah. We love tragic irony.
And he's also going to turn into a dummy, and it's amazing.
Dummy! Dummy!
Oh
Just
my god.
the floppy arm.
Look at him
So good.
ragdoll.
Oh god, his spine is broken. You just bent in half.
Yeah, are you sure he's still alive? I don't think this movie ends with him surviving.
No, you just
somebody
said he's
needs
alive.
to edit. Somebody needs to put
alive.
in some of the audio from the '80s animated GI Joe movie. Just he's gone into a coma.
Well, you say that it's funny. I was looking at the subtitles. There is dialogue. Somebody says he's alive.
He's okay, don't worry.
Oh my
And again,
god.
Karloff really sells the emotions of this. He's like a frightened animal. He's just like, go away. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
He didn't ask for this.
This is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, and again, not to keep harping on it, but the climax of this really blows Dracula out of the water, where they just kind of walk in. Oh, there's the coffin. Okay, well, that was done. Like, it's really anticlimactic.
I can imagine a lot of people watching this in the theater at the time kind of just being blown away about what they're saying because
But on the
what they're seeing.
Pyrotechnics.
Yeah.
Like,
But on the flip side of
Yeah.
that, we've seen what happens when you try to make the end of Dracula too complicated.
like,
Oh, you guys haven't seen Dracula 2000. That movie's nuts.
No.
but stay tuned for the 25th anniversary of Dracula 2000 as we come
Oh.
around.
Did that come out in
On
2000? I don't know.
Why else would it be called Dracula 2000?
Because film studios are dumb.
Did Blues Brothers 2000 come out in 2000?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, it
That
did
was
come out in
like
2000. Hey,
I
in
don't
my
know why that's
defense,
the first one I
internationally,
went
it was released as Dracula 2001. Fuck you, Robert.
Well, okay, and the Blues Brothers 2000 came out in 1998.
Yeah. So what are
What are we doing?
What are you giving me shit for?
Yeah, but I knew that Dracula 2000 was.
Did you know it got a trilogy?
Yep, I haven't seen him.
I think the second and third one are like made for TV.
So, like I said, I've never really cared for this epilogue. I don't think the movie needs it. I do like the final line where he toasts to the House of Frankenstein. That's got a nice bit of kind of dark comedy to it after everything we just watched. and especially factoring in like the legacy of like it's kind of here's to the sun, to the House of Frankenstein. That is a good final line in this movie, especially in the canon. That's kind of cool. But then the second one, Bride of Frankenstein, the exact same thing happens, where Dr. Frankenstein is supposed to die at the end, but then the studio got cold feet and wanted a happier ending, so they reshot it so he lived.
Yeah.
And that one, I think, is unfortunate. He should die at the end of it. Everyone should die at the end of that movie. It's the only thing wrong with it.
Everyone should die. That's what Robert's saying.
Robert's like, I want more death.
Oh, and the monster was played by Boris Karloff, not a question mark.
Damn.
I've always thought that was a little classy, kind of cool that like they keep his identity a mystery at the beginning, but then he's still credited at the end.
Yeah.
That's nice. But that was Frankenstein.
There's also just like an ominous feeling to it when you're looking at the cast list, and it's like, one of these people is just a question mark.
Yeah.
That's
What's up with
creepy.
That's weird.
Noah is scared of question marks. That's why the Batman Arkham games are horror games. There's so many question
I know.
marks.
There's too many.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to talk about with this movie that I think is part of why it holds up is both this and Dracula. I don't know if you guys noticed this. They don't have any score. They don't have any music during it. It's just the opening and ending. It's a lot less noticeable in this one because there's so much going on with the sound, especially in like the laboratory sequence and like thunder, and then you got the angry mob. Like there's a lot more sound going on that's kind of distracting you from the fact that there's no music, there's no orchestra playing over it.
Yeah.
In Dracula, I think it's a lot more noticeable because there's a lot of dry, quiet,
Mm-hmm.
And there's like
static scenes.
there's like a light hiss going on throughout the whole soundtrack of that movie, so it's a lot more noticeable.
Like you said, the audio is a lot better in this one. But yeah, this movie is almost 100 years old, and it's great. I love it.
Yeah, it's very good. Great performances, great script. The original tragedy horror film.
It's up there.
But yeah, well, that has been our commentary for the original Frankenstein. The second one, if you're me and Noah. And if you liked this video, please consider hitting the subscribe and like button. And we'll see you guys on the next one.